I saved for years to buy a new car, my first big purchase since recovering from bankruptcy. The night I brought it home, my neighbor walked over, knocked on my door, and said, "Nice car. Shame if something happened to it." I thought he was joking, until I woke up to find deep gouges keyed across every side, slashed tires, and a brick through the windshield with a note tied to it. "Don't show off when you live among people who are struggling." I never thought I'd hit rock bottom the way I did. In 2017, I was living a decent life. Nothing fancy. Just steady. Then I lost my job at the construction company. A week later, my landlord raised my rent. My truck broke down. I tore my ACL at a side gig. One thing after another. Before I knew it, I was drowning. Bills piled up so fast, it felt like I was buried alive. I tried to keep up. I picked up shifts wherever I could, even cleaned toilets. But it wasn't enough. Filing for bankruptcy wasn't something I wanted. It was something I had no choice but to do. I remember sitting in that cold office, signing papers that made me feel like garbage. Walking out with my head down, feeling like a failure. After that, it was survival mode. I lived cheap. Ate ramen. Worked every crappy job I could find. Gas station at night, janitor during the day, landscaping on weekends. Some days I didn't even sleep. I cut every corner I could. No vacations, no eating out, no new clothes. For 6 years, I put every extra penny into a savings account I guarded like my life depended on it. I didn't want much. I just wanted something of my own again. Something new. Something I could be proud of. In late spring of 2023, I finally hit my goal. Enough to buy a brand new 2023 Ford Escape outright. No loans. No leases. My name, free and clear. It wasn't a luxury car, but to me, it might as well have been a Ferrari. I drove it home that night, windows down, music playing low, heart pounding like a drum. It was the first time in years I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was winning. I parked it right outside my house. I remember standing there, just looking at it, the way you stare at a Christmas tree when you're a kid. My hands in my pockets, stupid grin on my face. That's when Dennis showed up. He lived 2 doors down. I'd barely spoken a dozen words to him in the 3 years I'd lived here. He was the kind of neighbor you kept an eye on, not because you liked him, but because you didn't trust him. Always drunk by noon, always looking for a fight. He swaggered over with a half-empty can of beer, took a long look at my car, and said, in this lazy, almost bored voice, "Nice car. Shame if something happened to it." I let out a little laugh, thinking maybe he was joking. The words felt wrong, but what was I supposed to do? Accuse him of something? I said, "Yeah, thanks." Worked hard for it. He didn't laugh. He just gave this weird smirk, like he knew something I didn't, and walked away without another word. That should have been the first red flag. But I was tired, happy, and honestly, I wanted to believe people weren't that bitter. I locked up and went inside. At 3:12 a.m., I woke up to a crash so loud I thought someone was breaking into my house. I shot out of bed, heart hammering, ran to the window, and there it was. My brand new car was wrecked. There were deep scratches down both sides, tires slashed to ribbons, and a brick had been hurled through the windshield. Glass everywhere. The brick sat in the front seat, like some sick joke. I ran outside barefoot, barely feeling the broken glass under my feet. Tied to the brick with a piece of string was a note. It said, "Don't show off when you live among people who are struggling." I can't even explain what I felt reading that. It wasn't just anger. It was grief. Grief for all the years I'd clawed and fought to have one good thing. Grief for trusting that good things could last. I called the cops. They came, took a report, said the right things. But you could see it in their eyes. This was just another broken thing in a broken neighborhood. They weren't going to knock on Dennis's door. They weren't going to get fingerprints off a brick. Insurance? They screwed me over too. High deductible. Comprehensive coverage doesn't kick in right away, they said. Thousands of dollars gone. Just like that. I tried to patch up the car the best I could, but every time I saw it, it was like a punch in the gut. Every scratch, every dent, every crack in the glass, reminders of what I'd lost. And Dennis? He sat on his porch every day like a king on a rotten throne. Beer in one hand, cigarette in the other, laughing with his buddies. Every time I walked by, he gave me that same smirk. Like he was proud of what he'd done. At first, I told myself to let it go. But anger doesn't just go away. It builds. It festers. And after a few weeks of eating it, of swallowing that bitterness every day, I realized something. I couldn't let this stand. Dennis needed to learn that actions have consequences. But I wasn't going to be stupid about it. I wasn't going to slash his tires or smash his windows. That's what he would do. I was going to hit him where it hurt most, and leave no fingerprints. So I started watching him. I kept my head down, played it cool. Pretended like I was moving on. Meanwhile, every time Dennis went to work one of his under-the-table jobs, or left town to fish or drink at somebody's place, I took notes. Dennis loved two things in this world, drinking, and that beat-up Silverado of his. It was rusted out along the bottom, the paint was faded, but he loved that truck like it was a living thing. Spent every weekend working on it, shining it up, replacing parts. He didn't have much else. No wife. No kids. No real friends besides the guys who drank on his porch. That truck was his pride. And that's where I found my opening. The funny thing about old trucks. They don't need much encouragement to die. Especially if someone knows how to make it happen. I had to be smart. One dumb move, and I'd be the one in jail. Not Dennis. He'd laugh his ass off while I sat behind bars. So I spent the next few weeks setting things up. Quietly. Patiently. I learned Dennis always left his truck unlocked. Probably figured nobody would dare mess with it because he was the local bully. I also learned he liked to leave his keys in the ignition when he went inside to grab a beer or take a leak. Lazy habits. Dangerous habits. One Saturday afternoon, he and his buddies were out front, drinking like usual. Around sunset, they all stumbled inside Dennis's place to catch a boxing match on TV. I knew that would keep them glued for hours. I slipped out the back of my house, cut through the alley, and circled back to the street. Dennis's truck sat there. Wide open. Waiting. My hands were shaking, but I kept my cool. I wore gloves, thin black ones I used for cleaning jobs, and a ball cap pulled low. I leaned into the cab just enough to pop the hood release. Then I walked away. Down the block, I circled back through another alley and came up behind the truck again, out of view of Dennis's windows. I popped the hood. Now, I didn't know everything about engines, but I knew enough. Years ago, when I worked construction, I picked up a lot from the mechanics on site. I took out a small bottle from my jacket. It looked like motor oil, but it wasn't. It was a mix of sugar, bleach, and some other nasty stuff a buddy of mine, who owed me a favor, had cooked up for me. I poured it carefully into the oil reservoir and coolant tank. Not enough to cause a fire or explosion. That would have been reckless. No, this was slow death. The engine would rot from the inside. Seize up. Blow out gaskets. Crack the block. Beyond saving. Expensive damage. Insurance wouldn't cover. Engine failure. Dennis would have no one to blame but bad luck, or his own stupidity. I wiped everything down, closed the hood, and walked away like I'd never been there. And then I waited. The first signs started a few days later. Dennis's truck sputtered and coughed like it was choking. Black smoke poured out the tailpipe. He cursed and kicked it, popped the hood, poked around. I watched from my front window, sipping coffee, heart pounding. 2 days after that, the truck completely died. Wouldn't start. Wouldn't even turn over. I could hear Dennis screaming from inside his garage. Tools clanging against the concrete floor. The next morning, A tow truck showed up and hauled the Silverado away. Dennis stood in his driveway, arms crossed, jaw tight, looking like someone had shot his dog. A week later, the tow truck brought the Silverado back. I watched Dennis stomp around, talking to the driver. Lots of yelling. Red face. The truck was dead for good. Apparently, the repair shop had told him the engine was shot beyond repair. Total replacement needed. $7,000 minimum, if they could even find a compatible engine for a truck that old. Dennis didn't have $7,000. Hell, he barely scraped together enough for beer. For the next few days, he tried to fix it himself. Took apart pieces. Cursed. Smoked cigarette after cigarette. Got drunker and angrier. And me? I went about my business. Smiling at the neighbors. Fixing up my car slowly, one paycheck at a time. I thought that would be enough. But I was wrong. Because Dennis wasn't the kind of guy who took a loss quietly. One night, about 2 weeks later, I came home from a late shift at the gas station, and found my front door wide open. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. Inside, my house was wrecked. Drawers pulled out. Furniture flipped over. TV smashed. Holes punched in the drywall. The worst part? He hadn't even stolen anything. Just destroyed. Just rage and hate let loose on everything I had. And sitting on my coffee table, where my little stack of repair receipts and insurance papers used to be, was a new note. In sloppy, drunken handwriting it said, "You want to play? Let's play." I stood in the middle of my trashed living room, fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, it wasn't much, but it was mine. And now Dennis had pissed all over it. The cops came. Took another half-assed report. No fingerprints. No cameras. No witnesses. They gave me a pamphlet about victim services, and told me to be careful. Be careful? Against what? A drunken neighbor who'd already declared war? I knew the truth. The cops weren't going to save me. No one was coming to fix this. It was me or no one. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of cheap whiskey and thought long and hard about what to do next. I didn't want to be reckless. I didn't want to get arrested. I wanted Dennis ruined. And if he wanted to play, like he said, fine. I'd play. I spent the next few days cleaning up the house, putting up cheap motion lights around the porch, and fixing the busted locks. While Dennis sat on his porch drinking, thinking he had scared me off, I was planning something that would cut deeper than anything he had ever felt. I dug into his life. I found out Dennis was on probation. 2 DUIs in the last 3 years. That explained why he never drove farther than the corner store, and why he was always drunk at home instead of out at bars. If he got caught drunk driving again, or even got reported for violating his probation, he could go back to jail for a long, long time. It wasn't just that either. Turns out, Dennis was collecting disability checks. Claimed he had a bad back from a roofing job years ago. Said he couldn't lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk. Claimed he couldn't even bend over without pain. Yet here he was, every weekend, hauling tires, engine blocks, heavy tools. Laughing about it. Insurance fraud. Probation violations. He was a walking time bomb. All I had to do was light the fuse. I bought a cheap little camcorder at a pawn shop. One with a good zoom. Set it up in the back window of my house, pointed straight at Dennis's driveway. For 2 weeks, I filmed him without him knowing. I got hours of footage. Dennis lifting tires, dragging heavy parts around, even climbing up on a ladder to clean his gutters. No limp. No winces. Nothing. Meanwhile, every night he got blackout drunk on that porch. Sometimes he'd even get in the old beater his buddy parked at his house and drive down the block to the liquor store for more booze. I filmed that too. Every second of it. When I had enough footage to bury him, I made 3 copies of everything, one for me, one for the cops, and one just in case. Then, I made a few calls. First, I called the local probation office and said I had video evidence of a man on probation violating multiple terms, including drinking, driving, and committing insurance fraud. Then, I called the state disability office. Last, I sent an anonymous email to the local news tip line. I attached a short clip of Dennis, beer in hand, lifting a car battery into the bed of a truck, laughing. No message. Just the clip. The fallout hit fast. 2 weeks later, early on a Tuesday morning, I woke up to the sound of shouting outside. I peeked through the blinds. 2 sheriff's deputies were at Dennis's door, badges out. A man in a suit, probably from the State Fraud Division, stood behind them. Dennis tried to play it cool at first. Smiling. Joking. Then they showed him something on a tablet. Maybe the videos I sent. Maybe more. His face dropped. His shoulders sagged. They cuffed him right there on the porch. The whole neighborhood watched. His buddies didn't say a word. The cops searched his house. Hauled out bags of stuff. Dennis was loaded into the back of a cruiser, red-faced and swearing, but no one cared. And me? I just stood at my window, sipping my coffee, watching. You'd think that would be the end of it. But life's funny like that. Because Dennis had friends. Not good friends, but drunk, angry ones. And some of them didn't take too kindly to one of their own getting locked up. A few nights later, just when I thought things were settling down, something new happened. I woke up to find the motion light on the side of my house busted. And spray paint scrawled across my garage door. Snitches get stitches. They knew. Or at least they thought they did. And it was about to get even uglier. When I saw the words, "Snitches get stitches," in dripping black paint across my garage, it hit different. This wasn't just Dennis anymore. This was a warning. A threat. It meant his friends knew, or thought they knew, what I had done. And they weren't going to let it go quietly. I filed another police report. Same runaround. No witnesses, we'll keep an eye out, maybe install cameras. Install cameras? Like that was going to stop a group of drunk idiots who thought they had nothing to lose. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window with a baseball bat across my lap and a pit growing in my stomach. I thought I had won when Dennis got hauled away. But the truth was, I had just stepped into a bigger mess. And now it was war. For the next few days, it was little things. Trash thrown on my lawn. Beer bottles smashed against my fence. My mailbox ripped out and tossed into the street. All Dennis's friends, circling like vultures. They hung out on their porches, watching me, muttering under their breath when I walked by. I kept my head down. Said nothing. Gave nothing away. But I was planning. Watching. Waiting. I knew their habits too. Just like I had known Dennis's. They were loud and stupid, but not careful. Most nights, they ended up wasted, too drunk to see straight. And one night I got my chance. It was a Friday, just after midnight. I saw them, Dennis's 3 closest buddies, piling into an old blue Buick. Laughing, pushing each other, shouting. Definitely drunk. I slipped outside, phone in hand, sticking to the shadows. I watched the Buick peel out of the driveway, tires squealing. They were drunk driving. Perfect. I followed on foot, keeping to the side streets. They didn't even make it 2 blocks before they blew through a stop sign right in front of a cop car sitting dark at the corner. The flashing lights hit them fast. I ducked behind a bush and watched. The Buick pulled over. 2 cops got out, hands on their belts, flashlights shining. It didn't take long. Field sobriety tests. Slurred words. One of them tried to run and got tackled into the grass. By the end of it, all 3 of Dennis's little soldiers were in cuffs, face down on the sidewalk. I slipped back home, smiling for the first time in days. The next morning, the street was quiet. No more bottles. No more shouting. No more threats. Just empty porches and the sound of my sprinklers hissing across the lawn. It should have been the end of it. But I knew better. Because when someone has nothing left to lose, that's when they're the most dangerous. And sure enough, 2 nights later, it came. Around 2 a.m., I heard a noise outside. Not a smash. Not yelling. A scraping. A dragging sound. I grabbed the bat, heart pounding, and edged to the window. And I saw them. 2 guys I didn't recognize, bigger, rougher looking, wearing hoodies pulled low over their faces. One had a crowbar. The other carried something that looked like a gas can. They weren't just there to break windows. They were there to send a message. Maybe burn the house down. Maybe worse. And suddenly, all the anger I had been carrying boiled over. I wasn't going to wait for them to light a match. Not this time. I slipped out the back door, bat in hand, staying low behind the bushes. The guy with the gas can had just started pouring a line across my front steps when I came up behind him. I didn't hesitate. I swung the bat hard, right into his ribs. He dropped the can with a grunt and went down on his side, gas splashing everywhere. The other one turned, raising the crowbar, but I was already moving. I cracked him across the forearm, and he screamed, dropping it. We struggled, grappling, fists swinging. I got punched in the side of the head, hard enough to see stars. But rage carried me. I shoved him back, grabbed the crowbar, and pointed it at them. "Get off my property!" I shouted, voice raw. Both of them stumbled to their feet, backing away fast. They didn't expect a fight. They thought I'd roll over like a scared dog. Not tonight. They took off running down the street, gas can abandoned, crowbar still in my hand. I stood there, breathing hard, shaking, blood dripping from a cut over my eye. And then I called the cops. This time, when they came, I had something real. Video from my motion lights. A gas can full of fingerprints. A busted crowbar left behind. 2 broken cowards' faces caught on camera. The police promise real charges this time. Arson. Assault. Trespassing. Felonies. Not just a slap on the wrist. And me? I knew it wasn't over yet. Because there was still one more move left to make. One more piece of revenge I had been saving. For Dennis. The final blow. The one he'd never see coming. The 2 guys who tried to burn down my house got picked up 2 days later. One of them flipped almost immediately. Gave the cops everything. Names, who sent them, where they got the gas can, what they were told to do. Guess who was behind it? Even locked up, Dennis was pulling strings. Calling in favors from every lowlife he knew. The cops charged him with conspiracy on top of his other crimes. That should have been enough. I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. Because even with him sitting in jail, he still had power over me. He still had made me live scared in my own house, still made me lose sleep, still made me bleed. I wanted him to feel what that felt like. Helpless. Betrayed. Ruined. I wanted him finished. I started digging again. Pulled every public record I could find. Searched court documents. Arrest reports. Old employment history. And I found something. Dennis had a daughter. Not someone he talked about. Not someone he bragged about. A daughter he had abandoned years ago after getting her mom pregnant and skipping town. Court records showed he owed almost $38,000 in unpaid child support. There were old warrants still active, but nobody had followed up because Dennis had moved around so much and always worked under the table. I couldn't believe it. The state might have forgotten about him. But I hadn't. I called the child support office. I sent them the paperwork. His location. His job history. His prison intake details. A few weeks later, I got word the state was hitting Dennis with every penny he owed. Plus fines. Plus interest. They froze what little money he had left in his accounts. Filed liens against his property. Any money he made, from now until the day he died, would go straight to the daughter he abandoned. The best part? Because of the way the law worked in our county, Dennis couldn't declare bankruptcy to escape it. Couldn't dodge it by staying in jail. They'd just wait. Wait until he got out, and then bleed him dry for the rest of his miserable life. It was clean. Legal. Permanent. It was the kind of revenge you don't see coming until it's already crushed you. And me? I thought I'd finally feel whole again after all of it. But the truth is, when the dust settled, and Dennis was rotting away behind bars with no friends, no truck, no money, no future, I just felt tired. I had won. But it had cost me. I had scars, literal and otherwise. I spent months fixing my house, fixing my car, fixing my nerves. I still look over my shoulder sometimes, even though there's nobody left to come after me. And sometimes, when I drive by Dennis's old house, empty now, windows broken out, grass grown up waist high, I don't feel proud. I just feel done. Like maybe, sometimes, revenge doesn't fix everything. It just ends it. And maybe that's enough.